So next nephritic syndrome which we are going to discuss is RPGN, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, right? So next we are going to discuss is called RPGN. So this is our third. We have discussed two already, PSGN, IgA nephropathy, right? Now we are dealing with the third type of nephritic syndrome, RPGN, which is also known as rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Name is rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, right? So rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, this is the full form of RPGN, right? RPGN, if you look at the another name, they have another name which is called as crescentic glomerulonephritis. Crescentic glomerulonephritis, right? Why this name crescent has been given to them, right? Why this name crescent has been given to them? Because of the presence of crescents on histological examination of the glomeruli, right? So these are all because of presence of the, so this crescentic glomerulonephritis name is given due to presence of crescents, right? Now the question is, what are crescents? What are crescents? So this point we have to keep in mind. Crescent is the most characteristic histological finding of the RPGN. Most characteristic histological finding of RPGN, right? So most characteristic histological finding of RPGN, that was the question in All India exam 2014 and 16. Most characteristic histological finding of the RPGN is the crescents, right? So now you can see how this crescent is very important, right? Or not only for the exam point of view, for understanding point of view, because of the crescent they are called as crescentic glomerulonephritis. What is their significance? They are most characteristic histological finding. And another important thing which we have to keep in our mind, number of crescents will correlate to the severity of the prognosis. Remember this point, what I am saying, mind my language, number, not size, not shape, number of the crescent, right? So number of crescents will correlate to the prognosis, right? So this will correlate to the prognosis. That is the important thing, number of crescents. So that point we have to remember, it is number of crescents which will be correlating to the prognosis, right? If number of crescents are more, prognosis of the RPGN will be poor. Remember this, number of crescent is more, prognosis will be poor, right? So that is the important thing we have to remember, crescents will correlate to the prognosis, right? So most characteristic histological finding is the crescent, right? Number will correlate to the prognosis, that is important thing, only number, only, remember, only number will correlate to the prognosis, nothing else. No size, no shape, no size, no shape, right? Now coming to the another important thing, which was the question in All India exam recently, what are crescents made up of? So now the question is, what are crescents made up of? And answer was, crescents are made up of parietal epithelial cells. Mind my language. First I will tell you what are the crescents, and then I will explain you how is the pathogenesis of the crescent formation. That is very important, right? So crescents are composed of parietal epithelial cells plus fibrin plus mononuclear cells, which are inflammatory cells, right? So inflammatory mononuclear cells, fibrin, parietal epithelial cells, all these together will form the crescents, right? So remember, crescents are made up of three things: parietal epithelial cells, fibrin, and mononuclear cells, right? So that is another important question. There was another question in older AIIMS All India exam, in crescent formation, which of the following is the most important? And to understand out of these three, which is most important in crescent formation, we must understand what is the pathogenesis of the crescent formation. So we will see what is the pathogenesis of crescent formation. Pathogenesis of the crescent formation. So pathogenesis of crescent formation. So what is the pathogenesis of crescent formation? That will be the important thing to understand, right? Now again, I will go back to the basics of the electron microscopy, which I had explained you, right? Ki there is a Bowman capsule. Bowman capsule, right? So what I'm drawing here is the Bowman capsule, right? Bowman capsule is lined by parietal epithelial cells, right? So these are parietal epithelial cells, as I have told you, and then urinary space was there. Followed by this, there is a capillary, right? This is the capillary. Capillary, as already I have told you, lined by the endothelial lining. So these are the endothelial lining, right? These are the endothelial lining, right? There is a support of the basement membrane, right? And we have seen there will be a foot-like processes, though they are podocytes, right? So these are the podocytes or visceral epithelial cells. So this is how we have discussed about electron microscopy. Now come to the pathogenesis. What is the basic pathology in RPGN? Basic pathology in RPGN is also some inflammation causing damage, right? Some inflammation. So because of the inflammation, what is going to happen? This inflammation can be induced by immune complexes. This can be caused by antibody. So whatever is the reason, single thing which I wanted to tell you is the inflammation is the basic culprit. Try to understand what I am going to say here. Because of the inflammation, what will happen, right? So because of the inflammation, there will be release of the cytokine, right? So there is an inflammation, cytokines are released. Now this cytokine will cause the major damage in this crescent formation. So whatever cytokine has been formed because of the inflammation, right, they are going to have dual effect on the glomerular capillary. What is that dual effect? Number one, they will damage the endothelial cells. So now I'm showing you cytokine will cause damage of the, now you can see there is a damage of the endothelium, and second thing you are going to see they are causing damage to the basement membrane also. So they are damaging endothelium also. See what they are going to damage? They are going to damage endothelium also. They are going to damage endothelium also, and they are going to damage basement membrane also. So we are seeing basement membrane damage, basement membrane damage, basement membrane damage, right? So what is happening because of these two events? Basement membrane is also damaged, endothelium is also damaged. Because of the endothelial damage, endothelium is a source of procoagulant, and during inflammation, when procoagulant will be released, coagulation pathway will be activated. If coagulation pathway is activated, fibrin will be formed, right? So because of this endothelial damage, right, because of this endothelial damage, what we are going to see, pink color. Let's see what I am making here. They will be forming pink color fibrin. So fibrin will be formed, right? So because of the endothelial damage, coagulation pathway will be activated. This is the simple concept. It's not only for the glomerulonephritis. Whenever blood vessel is damaged, endothelium is damaged, procoagulants will be released. They will activate clotting pathway, and in the end, fibrin, the clot, will be formed. So fibrin has been formed here. So because of the formation of the fibrin and because of the damage of the endothelium, so you can see there is a damage. There is a rupture of the basement membrane, right? So rupture of the basement membrane. So because of these ruptures through the basement membrane will allow this fibrin to leak outside. So fibrin will be coming outside, right? So now I am showing you fibrin is coming outside, right? So fibrin is coming outside. So you can easily now make it out what is going to happen in this RPGN. Because of inflammation, cytokines were released from the inflammatory cells, which has caused damage to the endothelium as well as basement membrane both. Because of the endothelial damage, fibrin were formed. Through the ruptured basement membrane, fibrin has leaked outside. They came outside, and after coming outside, fibrin will be getting deposited. Now you can see that fibrin is going to get deposited on this parietal epithelial cell, and fibrin is a glue-like substance, right? Fibrin is a glue-like substances. So fibrin is getting deposited, and simultaneously that cytokine is also coming. Cytokine is also coming. So because of this cytokine, right, and inflammatory cells and inflammatory cells will be also coming. So these are the inflammatory mononuclear cells. So inflammatory mononuclear cells are also coming from the glomerular capillary. So from the capillary, mononuclear cells is coming out, cytokine is coming out, fibrin is coming out. So because of all these things, what will happen, especially that monocyte and cytokine, they will activate this parietal epithelial cells, and now they will have proliferation. So now this parietal epithelial cell will be having proliferation, as I am showing here. Parietal epithelial cells are having proliferation, right? Actually, what should happen when parietal epithelial cells are proliferating? They must fall down into the urinary space and they should be excreted via urine. Did you understand what I am saying? Once there is a parietal epithelial cell proliferation, they should fall down into the urinary space, and from the urinary space they should come outside the urine, right? Through the urine. But what is happening here? They are not falling down. They are sticking to each other and piling up a heap of parietal epithelial cells. Piling up a heap of parietal epithelial cells. How? How this is possible? They are sticking to each other and making a heap of parietal epithelial cells because of the fibrin. So here you will notice they are having fibrin lining. So all parietal epithelial cells, you will notice some amount of fibrin is present, which is a glue-like substance holding all these cells together. Along with this, you will notice mononuclear cells are also present along with them. Mononuclear cells are also present along with them. So this entire structure, now just focus on this entire structure, which I am marking here. In this biopsy, when you will see this structure, this is exactly looking like, if you see, this is exactly looking like a crescent. Look at this. This is looking like a crescent, right? So that is what it is called as crescent, right? So what is crescent made up of? So this is crescent, right? So that is how crescent is formed. So what is crescent composed of? See, that was the question in All India exam. What is crescent composed of? So what is crescent composed of? Parietal epithelial cells, mononuclear cells, and fibrin. That's what we have written here, right? Okay, crescents are made up of parietal epithelial cell, fibrin, and mononuclear cell. So that is what we are seeing, crescents, right? So in this diagram, we are seeing a crescent, right? So this entire blue structure, right? What I'm showing you here, this entire blue structure is called crescent. So this is how crescents are formed, right? This is how crescents are formed. So what is crescent made up of? Again, I will write parietal epithelial cell. It's a fibrin plus mononuclear cell. That was the All India question. So crescents are parietal epithelial cell, fibrin, and monocyte. Come to the older All India question. Question was, in the crescent formation, which is most important factor? What is most important factor? Parietal epithelial cell or fibrin or mononuclear cell. So see the pathogenesis. Now look at the pathogenesis. Look at the concept. Look at the concept of pathogenesis: inflammation, cytokine, endothelial damage, fibrin. Who is most important? Fibrin is most important, right? And that was the answer in All India AIIMS exam. Fibrin is most important factor in crescent formation, right? So that is the most important MCQ from this. And this is the conceptual question. This is not the single liner MCQ, right? Most important factor for crescent formation is fibrin, right? So most important factor for crescent formation is the fibrin. So that point we have to keep in mind when examiner will ask this question. So these are the important things which we have to understand when examiner is asking. Another important thing which I wanted to correlate from here, when you will see the electron microscopy of this area where there is a rupture of the basement membrane. See what I am showing you here? Here it is rupture of the basement membrane. So this area, what I am showing you, this area is showing rupture of the basement membrane. Rupture of the basement membrane. That was another important MCQ in All India exam. On electron microscopy, rupture of the basement membrane is the feature of RPGN, right? So because of rupture of the basement membrane, what will happen? What will happen? There will be a wrinkling because they were having tensile strength because of the continuity of the basement membrane. But basement membrane has been damaged, and because of the basement membrane damage, that continuity is lost. and now they are like this, like this. So basement membrane is like this. What is this? On electron microscopy, due to rupture, what we are watching here is called wrinkling of the basement membrane. Wrinkling of the basement membrane. So that is another important MCQ. Wrinkling of the basement membrane, rupture of the basement membrane is the finding on electron microscopy of RPGN, right? So these are important things which we have to understand. Now look at this picture. Look at this picture, right? What I wanted to show you in this diagram, how crescents will appear, right? When you are seeing a microscopic examination, how crescents will be looking like. So when you are looking at these two glomeruli, you can see these are the two glomeruli, right? Or you can see there are two Bowman capsule. In this capsule, this is the past staining, right? So that they can make it more prominent, that capillary basement membrane is more prominent. So this is the glomerular capillary. What is happening actually in this, you can notice what I'm drawing here, this area, and look at the outer area of the Bowman capsule. Outer area of the Bowman capsule, what we are watching here in this picture, this is the glomerular capillaries, right? So all these things, what I'm writing here is the glomerular capillaries. So these are capillaries, right? But what are these things? These are all parietal epithelial cell. Can you see parietal epithelial cells? So these are parietal epithelial cells. And if you notice very clearly, see what I'm writing here, parietal epithelial cells. What you can see here, pink color. What is this pink color material? This is the fibrin. That's all. Fibrin. So this pink color material is the fibrin. And what are these cells? What are these smaller cells? What are these smaller cells? So these are mononuclear cells, or you can say monocytes. So parietal epithelial cell plus fibrin plus mononuclear cell, and that is what we call a beautiful appearing crescent in light microscopy of the RPGN, which is the most characteristic histological finding of the RPGN, right? So that is the important thing which we have to understand here. Parietal epithelial cell, fibrin plus mononuclear cell, they are forming crescent, right? So this is the crescent. In this biopsy also, if you look at the same thing, you can find out this one is the crescent, right? So crescents are important to assess the prognosis. And what is important? Number of crescents. What is important? If number of crescent is more, prognosis will be poor, right? So these are the crescentic glomerulonephritis. Look at the microscopic view. In this microscopic view, you can observe what I am going to draw a line. It is corresponding to the basement membrane, right? You can see the basement membrane, and you can see here also basement membrane is like this, right? So can you see this basement membrane? Ideally, it should be in continuity. It should be in continuity like this. But it is not continuous. What has happened? Rupture of the basement membrane. You can see rupture of the basement membrane on electron microscopy. What I am showing you is rupture of basement membrane. Rupture of basement membrane. Because of rupture of the basement membrane, that elasticity was lost, and now there is a wrinkling. Can you see this area? Wrinkling. Can you see wrinkling? Can you see beautiful wrinkling of the basement membrane? Wrinkling of the basement membrane, right? So rupture of the basement membrane, wrinkling of the basement membrane, these are the findings of the RPGN on electron microscopy, right? So we have seen the pathology and the microscopic view. Now we will see the classification of the RPGN and some more important feature, right? So what is pathological classification of the RPGN? When we talk about classification of rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, right? So classification of RPGN, what we are understanding here, right? In this we can divide RPGN into three. RPGN type 1, RPGN type 2, RPGN type 3. So type 1, type 2, type 3. There are three types of RPGN which we need to understand, right? What are these three types are called as? Type 1 is also known as anti-GBM RPGN, anti-glomerular basement membrane type of RPGN, because here antibodies are formed against glomerular basement membrane. Second is called as immune complex mediated RPGN. Immune complex mediated, right? So this is immune complex mediated RPGN. And third one is known as posse-immune RPGN. This is called as posse-immune RPGN, right? So these are the three types of RPGN, right? So three pathological classification. What? Anti-GBM, immune complex, posse-immune. Out of these three, which is most common type? So remember, this is present in more than 50% of the cases, and this one is the most common type of RPGN, right? So that is another important question which examiner asks. Most common type is type 3, posse-immune, right? We will discuss one by one, right? First, we will talk about anti-GBM. In anti-GBM, anti-glomerular basement membrane, what is the basic pathology? When you will see, what is the basic pathology here? When you will see the basic pathology here, basic pathology is antibodies are formed against the basement membrane. Antibodies are formed against the basement membrane. Basement membrane is having which type of collagen? You remember, type 4 collagen. So their basic target is type 4 collagen of the basement membrane. So what I am showing you here, it is IgG antibodies, right? So it is basically IgG antibodies, and their targets are type 4 collagen of the basement membrane, right? Now type 4 collagen also in this, right? This example is Goodpasture syndrome. So this example is the Goodpasture syndrome, right? So I'm writing here Goodpasture syndrome, right? So this was the question also in All India exam 2013, right? And 2016, this was the question in Goodpasture syndrome, which type of hypersensitivity reaction? So what type of hypersensitivity reaction you will suspect when antibodies are formed against the basement membrane? Antibody mediated, right? Antibody mediated is type 2 hypersensitivity reaction. So these are type 2 hypersensitivity reaction, and that was the question in All India exam. Now the question is, in Goodpasture syndrome, antibodies are targeting the basement membrane type 4 collagen, but which non-collagenous chain? Alpha 3, alpha 4 or alpha 5? That was another question. So here type 4 collagen and alpha 3 chain. So non-collagenous part of the collagen is alpha 3 chain. So this point we need to keep in mind for future exam. So antibodies are formed against type 4 collagen of the basement membrane. In type 4 collagen also specifically for alpha 3 chain in case of Goodpasture syndrome, which is an example of type 2 hypersensitivity reaction, right? Goodpasture syndrome, we must remember, first organ which will be affected will be the lungs. So lungs are affected first, and then it will be going for the renal involvement, right? So this is the point we have to keep in mind. First lungs will be involved, and then there will be renal involvement. So second organ affected will be the kidney, right? But most common cause of death in this patient, is the renal failure. So most common cause of death is not the lung failure or lung infarction. It is the renal failure. Which is the cause? RPGN, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, is the cause of renal failure in case of the Goodpasture syndrome. And that is the most common cause of death in this type of Goodpasture syndrome, right? So Goodpasture syndrome, we have seen the pathology was against the type 4 basement membrane, antibodies were directed. So tell me what you are going to anticipate on immunofluorescence microscopy. So on immunofluorescence microscopy, when you will see immunofluorescence microscopy, you will observe, because antibodies are formed against the basement membrane, and basement membrane will be like this, right? And antibodies are formed against the basement membrane. So whenever you will see the immunofluorescence, this will be green color, and they will be following the basement membrane like a ribbon, right? A ribbon like this. So this is called linear pattern of immunofluorescence, a linear or ribbon-like immunofluorescence will be seen, which is suggestive of antibody mediated damage. That is what we have discussed, right? Just now, linear ribbon-like immunofluorescence will be present in this case of Goodpasture syndrome. right? So this is about Goodpasture syndrome, and now I will show you the immunofluorescence microscopy, which was the question in AIMS 2016. So right now I am showing you immunofluorescence microscopy, and now you have to guess in your mind, because you are seeing this picture, you have learned the pattern of immunofluorescence. So now you tell me, what do you think of it? Linear or immune complex? See, homogeneous, linear, right? No granularity. So these are homogeneous and linear. So this is the homogeneous and linear pattern of immunofluorescence seen in Goodpasture syndrome, right? Which will be consisting of IgG and C3 complement. That was the question in previous year PGI exam also, right? So this is the linear pattern of immunofluorescence. You can see linear line like, right? You can see linear line like, homogeneous green, homogeneous, right? It is not granular, homogeneous, same color, yellowish green. So linear homogeneous green immunofluorescence is suggestive of Goodpasture syndrome, right? Now look at the another one, the type 2 immune complex mediated. Because they are immune complex mediated, so in this type of things, what are the conditions, what are the examples you will understand here to see in your examination, right? So immune complex mediated, number one is the Henoch-Schönlein purpura. It can be due to Henoch-Schönlein purpura, where you will see immune complexes. Another major important disorder is the systemic lupus erythematosus, right? And here you will call them as a lupus nephritis, right? So this will be lupus nephritis, and we will discuss about this lupus nephritis. So this is lupus nephritis. What happens in lupus nephritis? What happens in lupus nephritis, right? So according to the latest WHO classification, lupus nephritis has been divided into 6 classes, right? So they have been divided into 6 important classes according to latest WHO, right? Class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So there are 6 classes in order of worsening of the prognosis. Remember, in order of worsening of the prognosis. So when you are coming down, there is worsening of the prognosis. So I am writing here, there will be worsening of prognosis, right? So here you are seeing worsening of the prognosis, mean to say that this will be having worse prognosis, right? This will be having worse prognosis, and class 1 will be having best prognosis. Class 1 will be having best prognosis, right? So that is the importance of this WHO class. Class 1 is having best prognosis, and class 6 is having worse prognosis, right? So here what I want to discuss here, immune complex mediated, because these are immune complex mediated. And what are the names here? I'll just write their names in brief, right? Class 1 is called as minimal disease. Second is called as mesangial glomerulonephritis or mesangial disorders. Mesangial glomerulonephritis, minimal glomerulonephritis. Type 3 is focal glomerulonephritis. Type 4 is diffuse proliferative glomerulonephritis. 5 is the membranous glomerulonephritis, and type 6 is sclerosis. In the end will cause sclerosis of everything, and they are called as sclerosing nephritis. Sclerosing nephritis, right? So these are the 6 classes of the lupus nephritis which we are watching here, right? So after seeing these 6 classes of the lupus nephritis, what I want to show you, right? Number 1 important thing is the wire loop lesion. So what do you mean by wire loop lesion? Where you will find them, and what is their clinical feature, what is their clinical relevance, right? So these 3 things are very important. Wire loop lesions, right? What are the wire loop lesions? First we will see that thing. Suppose I am showing you a renal biopsy. Suppose I am showing you renal biopsy, and these are the capillaries, right? So these are the capillaries, because these capillaries are having basement membrane and there is a endothelium above the capillary. So just a schematic diagram. Suppose this is the endothelium here, right? So deposit will be just below the endothelium, right? So deposit will be just below the endothelium like this, right? So now you will be seeing subendothelial deposit like this. So you will be seeing subendothelial deposit like this. So because of this subendothelial deposit like this is looking like a wire loop, and that is why it is called as wire loop lesion. So examiner will be asking you, wire loop lesion is due to which type of deposit? Subendothelial deposit. Subendothelial deposits. So wire loop lesion is subendothelial deposit, and here I would like to show you the diagram of the wire loop lesion. Look at this picture. This is the renal biopsy with pus stain, and you can notice beautiful wire loop lesion. You can notice here a beautiful wire loop lesion. If you look at this area, you can see there is a capillary loop, and there is a, you can see there is a pink deposit. So pink deposit is the glycogen deposit. You can see here also there is a pink deposit. So there are so many loops here, here. So this entire glomeruli, you can see there are so many loops. Wire loop lesion of the lupus nephritis. Remember, wire loop lesion is due to subendothelial deposit. And what is their clinical significance? You are working as a nephrologist, and your pathologist have sent you your biopsy report of your patient that this patient is having wire loop lesion, which is subendothelial deposit seen on the microscopic examination. Kindly correlate clinically. So what is your inference? Subendothelial deposit, wire loop lesion. Remember, wire loop lesion will be suggestive of, wire loop lesion is suggestive of active disease. So when your pathologist is writing wire loop lesions are seen in this SLE patient, it means disease is active, number one, and number two, this will be having poor prognosis. So poor prognosis, active disease, these are the two findings you will keep in your mind whenever you are seeing a report of SLE patient renal biopsy with the wire loop lesion, right? That was the question in All India exam. Wire loop lesion is suggestive of active disease, poor prognosis, both of the above, right? Where you will see the wire loop lesion, that was the question in All India exam also and PGI exam also. So wire loop lesions are seen in, which class? So remember, it will be seen in class 3 also, it will be seen in class 4 also, and it will be seen in class 5 also, right? So class 3, 4, 5, all of them will be having, which was the question asked in PGI exam, right? So now you can see that class 3, class 4, class 5, mean to say that class 3 here, class 3, 4 and 5 means focal glomerulonephritis, diffuse proliferative glomerulonephritis, membranous glomerulonephritis, all will be having wire loop lesion. But the question in All India was most common cause of the wire loop lesion. So out of these, most common cause is type 4 diffuse proliferative glomerulonephritis. So answer was type 4. So now we will understand wire loop lesion is seen in all three classes, 3, 4, 5, but they are most commonly associated with class 4. So class 4 is most commonly associated with wire loop lesion. So that is the question in All India exam. So most commonly associated with wire loop lesion is the class 4, right? So class 4 is most commonly associated with wire loop lesion, which was the question in All India exam, right? So this is about lupus nephritis, right? So coming to the immunofluorescence examination, because these are immune complex mediated, right? So all these things, these are all immune complex mediated disorder. So on immunofluorescence microscopy, what kind of appearance you will find? Granular immunofluorescence, right? So granular immunofluorescence will be seen on immunofluorescence microscopy, right? So whenever you will see immunofluorescence microscopy, what will be the appearance of the renal disorder? So this will be the same like PSGN. So here you can see granularity, right? So these are granular immunofluorescence, right? This point we have to remember. In case of RPGN type 2, right? So RPGN type 2, what type of immunofluorescence you are going to see? Granular. Type 1, it was linear. Type 2, immune complex mediated. So they will be having granular immunofluorescence, right? So that important point we have to keep in our mind, right? Now coming to the class 3, right? Class 3 RPGN, which is also known as posse-immune RPGN. Class 3 is also known as posse-immune RPGN. So it is more than 50% of the cases. And this is the most common type of RPGN. As you can see, the name itself is telling posse-immune. So whenever you will see there immunofluorescence microscopy, on immunofluorescence microscopy there is no immune complex, right? So there is no immune complex. So they are having no relation with the immune complex, and that is why there will be nothing seen on immunofluorescence microscopy, right? So what are they actually? They are associated with ANCA, right? So remember, they are associated with ANCA. ANCA is anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibody. ANCA stands for anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibody, right? So they are associated with ANCA, anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibody, which are of two types, right? So there are two types of ANCA antibodies which I am going to describe. It's very important. All India exam 2016, there was an image based question from this topic, to listen to it very carefully, right? So ANCA is like this. Whenever you will see a neutrophil, I'm just drawing two neutrophil for the understanding point of view, right? There is a neutrophil, and this neutrophil, we all know there is a nuclei, right? So they are having 3 to 5 lobes of the, so these are two neutrophil. Now I am going to talk about two types of ANCA, P ANCA and C ANCA. So I am just writing two ANCAs, P ANCA number 1. Second is C ANCA. So P ANCA and C ANCA stands for, P stands for perinuclear. Remember, this P stands for perinuclear, because antibodies are formed against antigen which are present around the nucleus, around the nuclear. So whenever you will see the immunofluorescence microscopy, green color will be looking around the nuclear membrane. So this is why it is called as P ANCA, because antibodies are located around the nuclear membrane. So that is why it is called as P ANCA. Whereas when you are seeing the C ANCA, in C ANCA you will notice that they are having entire cytoplasm. So entire cytoplasm will be green, cytoplasmic, because entire cytoplasm is having antibody. So they are called as C ANCA, right? So cytoplasmic, C stands for cytoplasmic. So they are having cytoplasmic antibodies, right? So entire cytoplasm will be looking green. So that is the difference. Entire cytoplasm is green, they are C ANCA. When around the nucleus it is green, it is called P ANCA. And P ANCA will be present in which? Vasculitis. So P ANCA will be present in microscopic polyangiitis. Microscopic polyangiitis, right? So microscopic polyangiitis, you will see the P ANCA, right? But we have to understand, it is also called as microscopic pan. Pan and microscopic pan both are different. Why I am telling like this? Because in polyarthritis nodosa, there will be no ANCA. This was the All India question in 2011. So this point also we have to keep in mind very firmly. Pan, polyarthritis nodosa, there will be no ANCA, right? It is microscopic polyangiitis where you will find ANCA, right? And that ANCA is P ANCA. C ANCA is seen in granulomatosis with polyangiitis. So here example is granulomatosis with polyangiitis. So here you will see granulomatosis with polyangiitis. So granulomatosis with polyangiitis, this is the name of Wegener's granulomatosis. This is the new name, and older name is Wegener's granulomatosis. So older name is Wegener's granulomatosis, right? So the question is, in All India exam 2014 and 15, there was a question, Wegener's granulomatosis, which ANCA you will find? See this, what I'm saying, Wegener's granulomatosis, which ANCA you will find? So C ANCA, P ANCA, or both? So this is a clever question. Why I am saying? Because if examiner is using the language Wegener's granulomatosis, which ANCA is most common, then your answer will be C ANCA. But the question is, which ANCA is seen in Wegener's granulomatosis? Which ANCA is seen in Wegener's granulomatosis? So that time we must remember, Wegener's granulomatosis will be having both C ANCA and P ANCA. C ANCA is present in 70% of the cases. P ANCA is present in 25% of the cases. So whenever examiner asks you which ANCA will be present in Wegener's granulomatosis, answer should be both C ANCA and P ANCA will be present in Wegener's granulomatosis. That was the question in All India exam 2014, right? So Wegener's will be having both C ANCA and P ANCA, but C ANCA is the most common one, right? So when examiner says which is the most common one, your answer should be C ANCA is the most common. 70% it will be C ANCA, right? So ANCA associated glomerulonephritis has been kept in type 3, which are the most common type of glomerulonephritis. And when you will see these pictures, this diagram I wanted to show you, this was the picture given exactly in All India exam, right? Examiner had asked this immunofluorescence microscopy, which ANCA is visible. So now look at these individual cells, and it's easy. Remember, just you have seen once, it is not going to become a difficult topic for you. Now you look at all these are neutrophil. In all these neutrophil, you can visualize these dark color is the nuclear lobes, and this green color is the immunofluorescence antibodies. Entire cytoplasm is studded with antibodies or immunofluorescence, and these are the nuclear lobes, right? So entire cytoplasm. So which ANCA we are seeing? Cytoplasmic ANCA, C ANCA, right? So all these are C ANCA. You can see all these nuclear lobes, nuclear lobe, nuclear lobe, nuclear lobe, nuclear lobe. And in the cytoplasm, you can see cytoplasmic, entire cytoplasm is green. Entire cytoplasm is green. Only nucleus is visible like this. So these are the C ANCA, which we will find mostly in the Wegener's granulomatosis. Look at the another picture. Examiner may ask this question in future exam. Now look at this neutrophil and look at this green color. Immunofluorescence is just around the nuclear lobes. Just around the nuclear lobe. So this is a kind of perinuclear P ANCA. Perinuclear P ANCA. So that is how we will identify C ANCA and P ANCA. P ANCA is seen in microscopic polyangiitis, right? So that is how examiner may ask question. Wegener's granulomatosis, which of the following immunofluorescence you will see? Mind the language. Which of the following immunofluorescence you will see? And he will keep the question like this. Option, this diagram A, and then diagram B, and now you tell me which will be seen in Wegener's granulomatosis. Question is not which is most common. Question is which is seen in Wegener's granulomatosis. So what should be your answer? Both of the above. P ANCA, C ANCA, both will be seen. So that is the things we have to keep in our mind when we are talking about this glomerulonephritis, right? So these are the RPGN. Overall, RPGN prognosis is the poor prognosis, right? So here 2 points which I wanted to highlight. They are having poor prognosis because of the rapid renal failure. Because of the rapid renal failure, and within a week or month they will be having death because of the renal failure. Because of this rapid renal failure, you can see the name itself is telling RPGN, right? So RPGN is the most common cause of CRF also, most common cause of chronic renal failure also, which I have said. Least common cause of chronic renal failure was PSGN, but most common cause of chronic renal failure will be RPGN, right? So we have discussed about RPGN. Now the next and the last nephritis we are going to discuss is the basement membrane nephritis, which is called Alport syndrome, right? So next is the Alport syndrome. Alport syndrome, congenital or hereditary disorder, which affects usually 5 to 20 years of the age group, right? So patient will be of 5 to 20 years of the age group, and when you will see their clinical presentation, when you will see their clinical features, they will be having triad of the clinical features. Triad. What are the triad? Number one, in their eyes. In their eyes, what is the problem we are going to see? In eyes, you will see anterior lenticonus, which was the question in All India 2015. Remember, it is anterior, not posterior, and that was the question. Lenticonus is anterior, right? Conical lens, anterior lenticonus. So anterior lenticonus will be present. There will be subluxation of the lens. Subluxation of lens will be seen. So subluxation of the lens, anterior lenticonus. So these are the two things we will see here in eyes of the Alport syndrome patient, 5 to 20 years of the age group. Eyes will be showing anterior lenticonus, which was the question. right? This was the question in All India exam 2015. Anterior lenticonus will be present, right? Coming to the second thing, that is the ear. What is the problem in ear? They will be having deafness. What deafness? Sensory neural deafness. So ears will be having sensory neural deafness. So in ear examination, you will find they are having sensory neural deafness, right? So they will be having sensory neural deafness. That is another important MCQ. Alport syndrome, which type of deafness? Sensory neural deafness will be seen in Alport syndrome. So this is the second part of the triad. And what is the third part of the triad? Renal failure, or you can say kidney involvement. In kidney involvement, what you are going to see? You will find hematuria, right? So you will be finding hematuria and nephritis, right? So hematuria and nephritis, right? So because of the nephritis, there will be hematuria. So this is the finding. Triad of the Alport syndrome consists of eye, ear, kidney involvement. Eye, anterior lenticonus, subluxation of the lens; ear, sensory neural deafness; and in case of the kidney, you will find nephritis and hematuria, right? So these are the triad of the feature which you will see in Alport syndrome patient, right? Alport syndrome patient, if you see the etiopathogenesis, when you are looking at the etiopathogenesis, and if you are looking for the genetics of Alport syndrome consists of autosomal disorders, number one, and they are also associated with X-linked disorder. So autosomal and X-linked both are present in Alport syndrome, right? So which autosomal? Autosomal recessive also, autosomal dominant also, right? Which X-linked? X-linked dominant also, X-linked recessive also. So all pattern of inheritance we are observing in any Alport syndrome patient, right? So Alport syndrome, which is most common, autosomal or X-linked? So when examiner asks you this question, always keep in mind X-linked is the most common pattern. Remember, X-linked is the most common pattern of inheritance. And amongst the X-linked dominant is the most common pattern of inheritance. Most common pattern of inheritance. This was the All India 2016 question. More than 85% of the cases will be having X-linked dominant. So keep that in mind. This is the controversial question. Many people, they get confused when they see the language of the Robbins, right? So just remember, X-linked dominant is the most common pattern of inheritance, mentioned in Oxford textbook as well as one of the important pediatrics book also, right? Say OSCE textbook, right? That textbook is OSCE textbook of pediatrics, Oxford textbook of medicine. Both places you will find X-linked dominant is the most common pattern of inheritance, which was the All India question in 2015 and 16, right? So this is the controversial question which we must remember. Now coming to the pathogenesis of the Alport syndrome. Pathogenesis is the defective assembly. See what I'm writing? Defective assembly of collagen. So defective assembly of collagen within basement membrane of the kidney. So that is the basic pathology in a Alport syndrome. Remember what I'm saying? Defective assembly of the collagen in the basement membrane, right? So which collagen is present in the basement membrane? We all know that type 4 collagen, right? This was previous year All India question also. So that is why I am repeating. Type 4 collagen is the basement membrane collagen. So what is the problem in Alport syndrome? It is the assembly of the collagen molecule which is defective, right? So what is defective? What is defective in the Alport syndrome? So remember, what is defective? Which chain of the collagen? Alpha 3, alpha 4 or alpha 5? So there are chains, right? So alpha 3 chain, alpha 4 chain, alpha 5 chain. So when examiner talk about autosomal variant, remember when examiner says it is autosomal variant, in autosomal variant alpha 3 and alpha 4 chain is getting defective assembly, whereas in case of alpha 5 it is associated with X-linked disorder, right? So X-linked disorder is alpha 5 chain, autosomal disorder is alpha 3 and alpha 4 chain. So these are the basic differences, right? between the X-linked and autosomal. Autosomal will involve alpha 3, alpha 4 chain, and X-linked will be involving alpha 5. So there was a question in AIIMS exam where examiner had asked कि patient was having sensory neural deafness, hematuria. So which of the following chain will be affected in this patient? So examiner is asking which is the most common. So what is the most common affected chain? So remember, this will be the most commonly affected chain overall in Alport syndrome, and that was the answer in case of the AIIMS exam, right? So the problem is alpha 3 chain is also affected here, and alpha 3 chain was also affected in Goodpasture syndrome. So how you are going to discriminate Alport syndrome from the Goodpasture syndrome? Pathogenesis. Pathogenesis, it is defective assembly, not antibody mediated, whereas Goodpasture is antibody causing damage of the basement membrane. So that is why I wanted to discuss one more thing here. When you will see the light microscopy and immunofluorescence microscopy, there will be no diagnostic finding in Alport syndrome. There will be no diagnostic finding in Alport syndrome, because in Alport syndrome, immunofluorescence, why there is no diagnostic finding? Because it is not the antibody mediated, because there is no antibody. So that is why I said ki how to discriminate Alport syndrome versus Goodpasture syndrome, right? So Alport syndrome, when you will do the immunofluorescence microscopy, Alport syndrome, there will be no finding, nil, right? Because this is not antibody mediated, this is defective assembly of the collagen. Whereas Goodpasture syndrome, what you will notice, they will be having linear pattern of immunofluorescence, ribbon like linear pattern of immunofluorescence. So that is the basic difference, because both are involving alpha 3 chain of non-collagenous chain of type 4 collagen. So commonly both are involving alpha 3 chain, so we need to discriminate on the basis of the pathology. No antibody. So immunofluorescence will detect them. So that is another important question. Light microscopy, immunofluorescence microscopy will not reveal the diagnosis, and diagnosis is given only by electron microscopy in Alport syndrome, right? So that was the another older All India question. Only electron microscopy is diagnostic. This is the question. Only electron microscopy is diagnostic of which disorder? And we know that it is Alport syndrome. So that was the question in All India exam. Only electron microscopy will be diagnostic, right? So this is the number 1 question. Number 2 question, on electron microscopy, what will be the earliest change? So what is the earliest change on electron microscopy? So remember, earliest change is thinning of the basement membrane. Thinning of the basement membrane is the earliest finding. So that is the another important question in All India exam, right? After thinning of the basement membrane, there will be irregular thickening. Because of the defective assembly, there will be irregular thickening of the basement membrane also. So because of the irregular thickening of the basement membrane, there will be rupture of the basement membrane. And after this rupture, they will heal by lamellations, right? So they will heal by lamellation. So healing by lamellation. So lamellated healing, I should say lamellated healing will be there. Because of the lamellated healing of the basement membrane, when you will see the basement membrane, suppose I am showing you, this is the normal basement membrane, right? This area, up to this area, I am showing you normal basement membrane. You remember lamina rara externa, internal, lamina rara interna, and lamina densa, right? Outside externa, inside interna, lamina densa, right? So because of the rupture of the basement membrane, lamina densa will be forming laminations like this, right? So they are forming lamellations like this. So this is the lamina densa. So lamina densa is forming lamellation. So this lamellated healing is by which layer of the basement membrane? Could be the future question, lamina densa. So it is done by lamina densa. So this is the future question which we can anticipate. The lamellated healing is by lamina densa. Because of this lamellated healing, this will be looking like a basket weave, and that is why this diagnostic appearance of the Alport syndrome is given a name of basket weave appearance. So basket weave appearance is diagnostic on electron microscopy of the Alport syndrome. So Alport syndrome electron microscopy, basket weave appearance is due to lamination by which layer of the basement membrane? Lamina rara interna, externa, or lamina densa. So that is how future question may be asked, and we have to be prepared for this, right? So these are the electron microscopic finding of the Alport syndrome. We can see, I will just sum it up. Earliest, thinning of the basement membrane, then irregular thickening. Because of that stress, there will be rupture. Due to rupture, now you can see the lamina densa will be forming layers, and they will be giving appearance like a basket weave. And whenever you see the basket weave appearance in your exam, that will be diagnostic of Alport syndrome. Look at this picture of the basket weave appearance. So this is the electron microscopy which I wanted to show you. That is what I have told you. This area I am showing you, it's a normal lamina rara externa, lamina rara interna, and gray color thick band is called lamina densa. So this is lamina densa. Now you can see lamina densa, up to this it was normal, but here you can see there is a irregular thickening and there is a rupture of the lamina densa, and because of the rupture of the lamina densa, you can see there are so many gap form here because of the irregular laminations by the lamina densa, and that is why this area which I am showing you is having basket weave appearance, right? So this is called as basket weave appearance. So this basket weave appearance is diagnostic feature of Alport syndrome on electron microscopy.